Kingdom Come Deliverance II. What a game. I wanted to come over here and talk about it a little bit more. I did the before you buy, more critical look at it on Game Ranks. Here, now that the dust has settled and now that some of you guys have gotten your hands on it, I just kind of like want to talk about some of the best things about it because it's a really good game. I did say in my review, or I posted on social media, that it could be considered Game of the Year material. And I say that specifically because I think it's just like a really uncompromised, old school, like straight up video game. Not even from the fact that like it doesn't have microtransactions or anything like that. Like it's just a game you play through. Of course, that's always welcome here. But really the fact that it's committed to like providing the player depth and like a shit ton of challenge. That being said, even a game this good, like, you know, the Steam reviews are off the charts. It already sold like well over 1 million copies. I have, of course, am heaping some praise on it. It is one of the games where I use that hackneyed, overused phrase, it's not for everyone. But I mean that very much so here, for reasons I'll talk about in a little bit. Ultimately, though, I think the best thing about Kingdom Come Deliverance II is the core gameplay, the commitment to the RPG systems, while also committing to tell a good and well-presented story. With the first game, yes, there was a lot of talk about how, it's historical accuracy and realism and stuff like that. That's all well and good, but here for the second game, they really just doubled down on characters, storytelling, and presentation. And I think that just goes a long way, right? With the first game, you grew to love Henry, of course, but now, like, Henry is just like my boy in the second game. Like, as much as I love a game where you create your character from scratch, from the ground up, you set your backstory for them, I like having the guardrails, so to speak. I like having an established character because I'm not very creative. I can't come up with this stuff. So I like having an established character that then I have some freedom of choice and some wiggle room with how their adventure goes down in that. And I think this is a really good version of that. You have Henry and Hans for quite a bit of it, but you also have like really good secondary characters. You have good enemies or villains, so to speak, and you just have a lot of good world building in like the townspeople and the side quest people you meet. One example early on in the game, right, is like you're spending a lot of time in that first region, and then you get to the wedding sequence, and then the wedding, which is just a great, well-constructed kind of sandbox mission area that progresses as the wedding goes on, right? And there's a bunch of like little hidden things and stuff to do there. But I like that it's all just filled with people that you have gotten to know. At that point, I had spent so much time just trying to get my character better and really do everything in that region, at least as much as I could up to that point, that by the time I got to the wedding, every wedding guest, like, I feel like I knew pretty intimately. And that was just a really cool experience. And it speaks to, number one, great world building and great quest design and stuff like that, but also just like a good narrow focus of like what you're spending your time in. And for me, yeah, a lot of it is spent getting better at things. And that's where some people are going to love it or hate it, because the game can be pretty brutal. And like I said, uncompromised. If you're not used to this type of challenge, if you're not used to like drilling in and really figuring something out, or drilling in and really trying to get better at something in the game, then it's a long uphill battle. I think it's especially enjoyable, but also a lot of the times things will feel absolutely bullshit until you get better at them, like combat. Until you learn the master strikes, you just feel like an idiot, a total fool. So what you need to do is grind, get some money to buy some lessons, or just actually keep practicing and engaging in as many fights as you can to get your character stronger. That's the RPG stuff I like. Get better by doing. And that works really, really well here. Some systems I think still suck or are still annoying either way, like the lockpicking. Like, you can get better at it, yes, and it does get a little easier, but on a controller, like, it's still just not a good time. But like, on the one hand, I gotta give it to them. It's the game's commitment to that challenge, to that thing that you have to kind of like, you know, to that mountain that you gotta climb. And climbing the mountain here leads to empowerment, I guess. That's what got me so hooked on this game, because once you kind of get through some of the ground level stuff, and I'll admit the game does start slow. I found it all compelling, but yeah, slow. But like, once you really feel like a knight, you have the power to actually succeed in fights, and you're actually in skirmishes, you're in war, you're in these awesome one-on-one duels and showdowns. It just felt like such a good payoff to the work you put in trying to figure out the game, piece it all together, grow your character. And then by that point, like I said, with me, I was already hopelessly addicted. So it kind of just kept getting better from there. But really, it's the presentation and stuff and everything that's really stepped up this time around that I've really been digging, is just living in these worlds and getting lost in the woods. There's stuff out there to find. There's little things to discover. It's not the most densely packed open worlds. No, there's still long stretches of wilderness that don't have a lot. But when you stumble upon something, it feels really special and interesting. And add to the fact that the game just looks really damn good, with great visual design, lighting, foliage. It just does have that immersion. You know what really helped me click with this is actually one of you guys. I'm sorry, I don't remember who it was, but in my comments somewhere here, or the Friends Per Second podcast, or I don't know where, somebody described this game as kind of like Oblivion, but without magic. And I didn't really know like what they were going for until I did explore for a while and get really lost. And yes, it's, for me, that sense of immersion that came from Oblivion. Obviously now, not so immersive when it kind of looks like that, but you know, really believing the forest, believing the depth of the world, and just kind of getting lost in that and willing to just walk and see what happens. Now, Kingdom Come Deliverance II isn't unique by any means for that type of exploration experience. Yeah, but like, I don't know, something about the vibe of it, the music, the fact that they still use a lot of lighting techniques and like bloom lighting and stuff that just reminds me of that era. It just really clicked with me. Couple that with the music and like the present, like the cutscenes and everything are very well shot, cinematic, really well done. But the music, both in cutscenes and just exploring, are really good. The orchestral scores they have going on here, the themes they generally have going, feel very, I don't want to say John Williams-y because that's kind of broad, but I'd say almost like some of the like simpler stuff in the original Star Wars movies, some of those themes. I don't know, I couldn't help but like have my brain think of that. Also, the game does have a really good video game dog. Like just a good dog mechanics, good use of dog in the game. You can pet the dog, you can feed the dog, but the dog also has nice little RPG systems. You can improve your stat as a hound master, and you know, just genuinely unlock more useful features out of this dog. Just a damn good, like 10 out of 10 video game dog. And I don't just mean like, oh, it's cute. I mean like just legitimately well done and compelling as both a companion in the game and as a full gameplay mechanic. Right? Just like you. Boston, just like, hey, wake up. Boston, wake up. Boston, hello? Boston, I'm trying to get you on the... Boss. Are you alive? Hey, man. Hi, good morning. Good morning. Hi, it's okay. What? But I do think for me, like falling in love with the game, a lot of it was the challenge and figuring things out and not playing with a guide and trying to get consistently better and being really fuzzy on the systems from Kingdom Come Deliverance 1. You know, it's been a while and I never finished it, but you know, really chipping away and like banging your head against the wall and trying to figure out, well, how do I get better at this? How do I get better at this? How the hell am I going to do that? How am I going to survive that? All of that while also dealing with some great moments where the game is willing to let you fail and then the game reacts around it. I love that. It doesn't have it like one-to-one every single second, but there are moments that feel very Baldur's Gate-y where you can screw up a conversation check, you can screw up a stealth section, you can screw up a million things, and the game keeps rolling and reacting to what you're doing. I love that. There is a mission pretty early on where you're kind of locked out and you don't have any of your things, and that's pretty limiting in scope in a lot of ways. It also provides a lot of challenge if you're not prepared, and I could argue that that might need some tweaking, but most of the time the challenge is really good. It lets you screw yourself into a corner if you're not careful, so pay attention to the save system, use the save system to the best of your ability. But it did make me realize something about myself playing this, and especially those early hours, and like really banging my head against the wall and playing for a couple of days and being like, I haven't made a lot of progress. I'm still this broke idiot. I lose every fight. I really got to start focusing on where to find the right trainer, where to do stuff, right? It's like... This is going to sound stupid, but like every adult gamer, you know, like a gamer with a job or not a lot of time on their hands or anything like that, I think there are two wolves inside of us. On the one hand, there's of course like us, we're a player that like wants insane depth, compelling, deep mechanics, a bunch of mechanics crammed into a massive game. You know, you get your money's worth for this incredible experience, right? This huge world. But then there's the other wolf, which is the player that just doesn't have time for all that, or really just doesn't have the tolerance for like, oh, it gets really awesome 20 hours in. Some people just don't have time for that, or the patience for that. And I think that's totally understandable. Sometimes my fuse is short with this stuff. And with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, I did kind of battle with those two wolves inside of me, because there is a point, and I have seen it in a lot of my comments, a lot of people being like, I don't have time to lockpick a bunch of chests to get better at it. I don't have time to really do this thing or this thing in this game. I just want to play through an adventure. And I think that's especially for folks who like want to play through it the old-fashioned way and not use a guide. Because it could be argued there are some points in this game where it feels like you really need to look up a guide. It's pretty tough stuff. So it's definitely a hard game to recommend to everyone, because like I said, not everybody has that much time on their hands. If you have an hour or two to game in a night, the first couple of hours in this game, you're going to feel like you barely make any progress and you suck, and you might fall off of it. You might bounce off. But if you stick with it, if you persevere and your Henry gets better and your understanding of how to get better in this world increases, then it's a really good time. You get to see these incredibly designed and detailed worlds and just live in a good full-fledged story RPG experience. I love facing off with a bandit camp or like a side mission and deciding, you know what, I'm gonna wait till nightfall and sneak in. I like talking my way out of situations the best I can. I like preparing for something and then going in and totally screwing up, and the game managing to give me compelling reasons to keep going, whether it's in dialogue options or moments in the story, whatever. I also, like I said before, I also just really like an immersive world, a fun world to get lost in. Hop on my horse, go like, what's over that hill, and ride over there and see what's going on. While also just dealing with the challenge that I'm constantly getting more hungry, my shit is just breaking, like my shoes are falling off my feet. Dealing with all that stuff that I don't always love dealing with in every game, but I think here there's a good balance of the difficulty, the survival elements, and the get better by doing RPG grind stuff. And it's hard not to get into anything without really spoiling anything, but I'll just say, like I said before, I really like the characters. I really like Henry as a character. Hans is great, and some of the camaraderie that's really built here really, really works, but it's also the depth of the supporting characters, and some characters that show up that have a significant role that were from the previous game are fleshed out even more here in interesting ways, and in my opinion, like Godwin and stuff just become like really, really compelling all-timers. And the game also takes what I said earlier, like the wedding scene where you're in these like collected, curated moments in the game where you're surrounded by characters that you got to know. And the game just kind of keeps escalating those situations to the point where you're in larger battles and skirmishes and you actually give a damn about what happens to some of the characters around you. You give a shit about what happens to some of the main characters in the story. And that's just what I'm here for, man. That's good stuff. The escalation is really good. The way they continue the story is really good. I wish I could like show some of it here and spoil it. Maybe I'll make like a separate spoiler video at some point, but yeah. I also really liked the game's commitment to, yes, like the history and the world and everything and the language and stuff like that, but also just in terms of showcasing how it is. It's like everybody, like a lot of people sucked. Everybody was focused on like social class systems and order and who's a rank and who's a noble and who's this. And the world is just brutal. Everybody kind of like solves problems by like with violence or like fist fights. Like I feel like in this game, it's like everybody you meet is just down to just start beating your ass. It's a dirty, simple, like down brutal world that also, again, has all that beauty when you hop on a horse and get lost in the woods. I don't know. I'm talking in circles here a little bit, but I really like Kingdom Come Deliverance II. I don't know what it is this time around. You know, the first game I was like, yeah, this is cool. And like, I appreciate why people were so in love with it. But for me, I was like, I don't know. This time around, I'm way more into it. It doesn't really dumb anything down. It doesn't make the systems like easier for the most part compared to the first game. But I think it's like stronger storytelling, bigger, more interesting worlds, more side quests, more time to live and breathe in this world, while also competing with the gamer wolf, the adult gamer wolf inside me that doesn't always have time for all this. I don't know, for me, it was just a perfect storm, just like feels like an old school PC gaming goodness. I think Warhorse Studios at this point, like they've shown how it can be done. There was a time where games like this were, obviously there's still actually an incredible challenge to be built, but they don't need 8 studios and like $1 trillion spread across the whole world to make a really compelling, meaty game. Also, not a compromise game. Like I said, they stuck to their vision and they nailed it and put a lot of big AAA studios to shame. A lot of those big studios have been trying to do stuff like this, but it never has come quite together in the last couple of years, quite like this game. So yes, I recommend Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. There are a lot of caveats, like I said, that like, everybody has two sides, especially if you're older, you're busier. But I think if you have like a tolerance for not challenge like a Dark Souls boss or anything like that, but challenge for just like sitting and figuring a game the fuck out, I think you should definitely check it out at some point. Also, I said this in the before you buy, I think, but it just released in a far better technical state than the first game, so that also really helps. I have been loving it on ultra wide, no issues or anything like that. But yeah, I want to know, if you have been jumping into the game, what you think. Were you in love with the first game and you jumped right into this? Were you kind of like meh on the first game and now you're hooked? Are you just jumping into this not knowing anything about the original game? Anything at all, I'd love to hear your experience. I think there's a good conversation here in terms of like what you're taking away from it. Are you into the story and exploration like me? Or are you just loving the sweaty RPG systems? Or maybe you're learning things from some of the historical aspects, like who the hell King Wenceslas was, not just that song. Anyway, let's talk about anything Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 down there. I definitely want to hear from you. I've been yapping for far too long, so if you've been sitting here listening to me, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm just trying to talk about stuff I like, stuff I find interesting. That's it. So if you get that, clicking the like button, and I know I always say it, but it does help. So thank you. But that's it. I'm Jake Baldino. Subscribe because video games, pizza's on me.